We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes. We are previewing the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl between Notre Dame and South Carolina. We're doing this on December 14th, so things could change by the time you watch it, but a lot of change already, Blake. Let's start with South Carolina before we move to Notre Dame. The Gamecocks are without Cam Smith, who is probably going to be a first-rounder. He's their cornerback. He can really shut down a team's best weapon. You've got running back Marshawn Lynch in the portal. Now, Lynch didn't play the last couple of games for them in Carolina's two biggest wins of the year. He didn't play, and then some. Jaheim Bell, their running back / tight end, is in the portal along with tight end Austin Stogner. Both those are good ball players, and Josh Vann has suffered a knee injury. He's maybe their best receiver, one of the best two, certainly when he's healthy. A lot out for the Gamecocks, but Notre Dame says, hold my beer. We've got some guys out too.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys out everywhere, as we said, on both sides. Of course, Drew Pine, quarterback's transferred for Notre Dame, so they'll have someone else stepping in there. Michael Mayer, the tight end, their leading receiver, he is also opting out. So, I mean, he had, 809 yards receiving, more than double their second leading receiver. 9 touchdowns. No one else had more than 3, I think, in the passing game. So that's significant too. They're, sack man. Like, what does he say? 11 sacks for Isaiah Foskey. He's opted out. So, yeah. I mean, what else? What else do you say, right? Like, there's just so many different playmakers on both sides that are opting out and will not be playing in this game or have transferred and added to the list of games that are wildly unpredictable. So.
Okay, I don't know how relevant these stats are going to be, but we always go through them. When Notre Dame's got the ball, the Irish average 30.7 points a game. Carolina gives up 27.5. Notre Dame likes to, on average, run 39 rushing plays a game and 27 pass plays. Sacks count as pass plays. In those, Notre Dame was averaging 5.3 yards per rushing play. Carolina giving up 5.5. Notre Dame averaging 7.1 per passing play. Carolina giving up 5.6. Carolina's had 12 picks. Notre Dame has thrown 8. Carolina's recovered 8 fumbles. Notre Dame has lost 7. Notre Dame gave up 19 sacks. Carolina had 28. Those are the numbers. What we make of it with all the opt-outs, you tell me.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one to tell you. Ask somebody else. No, in all
I do
seriousness,
think
it's just
that Cam Smith being off the field in this will have an impact, but Notre Dame's also without a quarterback. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's the thing. It's like you could say, "Oh yeah, well, like this is going to happen," but then, "Oh yeah, Notre Dame's starter transferred." So it's like, I mean, what Notre Dame's basically got, 2 guys that haven't. What I mean, yeah, I don't. Again, it's like you're talking about the numbers that are there versus the numbers that we have. We have no data points for the actual
Yeah.
setup here that we're going to see in this game, and I think that's what makes it so hard to figure out. But yeah, I mean, you just, I mean, it's like, what is Notre Dame's offense going to be like? I just assume they're going to run the ball. Like that would be my best guess is they're going to try to run the ball here because I think that's the path that you feel a little bit more certain about because when you look on the other side too defensively, you mentioned even though Cam Smith's not playing, that was a big part of why South Carolina was good against the pass. They still gave up some yards on the ground, which is pretty obvious just
Oh
in the
yeah.
numbers that you read. So giving up 192.8, rushing yards per game, 113th nationally. So I think that's pretty simple, right? I think Notre Dame offensively is going to try to run the ball, and because their quarterback situation is going to be different than it was the entire season, basically. So that's your approach here if you're Notre Dame, and you try to get a couple of those guys going in the running game and try to do it that way. So.
Before we talk about the other side of the ball, a shout to our presenting sponsor, Stakes. You can predict sports better than the crowd. For a chance to win NFTs with Stakes, players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. When the Gamecocks have the ball, they're led by Spencer Rattler, their fine quarterback. who played much better as the season went on. I say fine quarterback. We certainly had our knocks on Spencer Rattler, but he did get better towards season's end and lead them to some big wins. The Gamecocks averaged 31.7 points a game. Notre Dame gave up 21.8. Carolina lost a dozen fumbles. Some of those were Rattler, but Notre Dame only forced and recovered 4. I think it forced more than that. Carolina threw 13 picks. Notre Dame had 5. Now, here's something interesting. Carolina only gave up 18 sacks. Notre Dame registered 35. So ability to generate pass rush is interesting, but Notre Dame lost its main sack guy. So there's that. Carolina averaged 4.3 yards a rush. I would presume that number goes down without Marshawn Lloyd. Notre Dame gave up a surprising 4.9 per rushing play. Notre Dame's pass defense, though, really stingy. 5.4 yards per pass play given up. Carolina gave up 7.6. Blake, the Gamecocks defense was leaky at times, but it also, the offense was all over the place. I guess that's the best way to put it. I guess it was leaky when it came to giving up the ball. Again, this is a God help you if you know what to make of this matchup with all the guys out.
Yeah, just get the ball to Spencer Rattler and let him sling it around the field there. I think that's probably the best. That's the best approach in my opinion, because like you said, you take Lloyd out of the mix, which I know he didn't play in some of those games, but like you said, Bell's not there either, right? So, so I know they've still got options there.
And they played better without Lloyd too. I don't know what to make of that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like if you just look at it from a number standpoint, right? It's right. Just trying to figure out those kind of things in terms of just numbers, and it's really hard to, say, all right, well, here's what South Carolina is going to do in the running game, because how do we factor that in, knowing that those two guys aren't there? So it's like we have no idea what they're going to do in the running game. I mean, they've got some guys that, there are guys there, but it's like we don't know what their approach is going to be. I can't imagine they're just going to plug someone in and give them 25 carries. So I think this is Spencer Rattler to me. I mean, look, Tennessee threw it 37 times. Clemson, he threw it 39 times. Two of his highest, that both tied, I guess, for his highest, attempts on the season. I would expect the same here, even against a Notre Dame defense that is good. But now, especially if you take out a guy that was so good in terms of getting sacks and pressuring the quarterback, I feel like that opens up some more possibility for Rattler to do some things. So that's my guess is South Carolina throws the ball 40 times here, and that's your approach to trying to win this game, because, again, you take away a big significant part of Notre Dame's pass rush, and maybe you feel like, it's a little bit easier to kind of do what you want to do through the air. So,
okay. Some final things before we get into our picks here. Penalty yards, Notre Dame 43 a game on average, Carolina 63. Special teams, FEI ranks South Carolina number 1 in the country in special teams. They will fake field goals. They will block punts. They'll do all kinds of stuff. Notre Dame, though, 8th nationally there. Strength of schedule, according to ESPN's FPI, Carolina 15, Notre Dame 31. Our ranking in our Southeastern 14 composite rankings, 4 computers we like, an average of those, Carolina 35, Notre Dame 23. The line on this, Notre Dame a 2.5 point favorite with a 51.5 point over under, meaning Vegas is predicting a final score for this one of 27-25. That over under lower than what the teams did on the season. If you take what they did, they averaged, the over under should be about 56. So that's a lot I've thrown at you there, Blake. How do you make sense of any of this?
Yeah, as always, non-professional bettors, that over-under projected will probably factor in the fact that Notre Dame had a starting quarterback that had been there, and a lot of things like that. Top receiver, and the same on South Carolina's fronts. Give me the Beamer ball here. Like, South Carolina's going to do something on special teams, and that they're going to. I mean, look, they beat Tennessee, they beat Clemson. I know there's a layoff here, and I know. There's some guys that aren't playing, especially the Cam Smith one is significant, as we know. But I think it'd be more significant going up against a passing offense that had a starting quarterback. So I think that's a little bit different, and it's top receiving option. So I just think South Carolina is just riding a wave of momentum. Feels like Shane Beamer. You say, that's your motto, Chris, is teams that want to be here is the ones you tend to lean towards. I think Notre Dame wants to be here, but I also think that Shane Beamer's the kind of coach that will, get his guys ready coming off of, the best possible finish to the season you could ask for by beating Tennessee and beating Clemson. And so, yeah, I probably lean towards South Carolina here just because I think that, again, Rattler probably have to throw the ball a lot, but he's played better. And I just think, I just think it's a different setup here than it would have been, if all parties are on the field that have been there all season long. Maybe your stance is a little bit different, but I don't think you can deny what South Carolina did to finish the season. And I think that the matchup seems to set up okay for them.
I'm going to give you a word of caution, or a few words of caution, and then my pick. But first, I need to tell you about BROTHROW. If you don't like betting $11 to win 10, this is the place for you. You can bet with BROTHROW in all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance of winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. There is no deposit, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. We are setting up a community there that you can bet in, and we'll get that off the ground soon. But go sign up there so we can get you in that room, help out the people who help us here. Okay, Blake said I was going to give you a pick and some word of caution. We have talked about how mind-bending it is to figure out what is going to happen in this one, given all the variables that were not a part of each team's regular season. Well, these teams were both very hard to predict even when they had their players. Case in point, Notre Dame gives Ohio State a pretty good run for its money in the opener, loses 21-10, loses to Marshall the next week. It beats North Carolina 2 weeks later to give Carolina its first loss of the season, beats BYU the next week, then loses to a bad Stanford team that fired its coach. Couple weeks later, beats Clemson 35-14, darn near loses to a Navy team that fired its coach the next week, and then loses to USC to close its regular season. South Carolina, this is the Gamecocks' up and down season. Among other things, lost by 13 to Missouri, came back and beat Vandy on the road by 11 the next week, and I didn't think they looked very good. I was at that game. Carolina goes on the road next week, loses 38-6 to Florida, does not get an offensive touchdown. So what happens next? Carolina beats Tennessee 63-38 to knock the Vols out of the playoff conversation, and then upsets Clemson and Clemson. So, again, these were when the teams had their players. You couldn't figure out what to do. Now that these teams do not have a lot of their main players, it gets even tougher. I'm going to go with you, though. I'm going to go with Beamer ball just because Shane Beamer's teams, I believe you played quarterback in the bowl game for Carolina last year. Was that correct?
Yeah.
And they won with you. So there was that. So give me Carolina for lack of better ideas. Okay, I'm Chris Lee. He's Blake Lovell. We're Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We're picking all these bowl games involving SEC teams. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them. We'll see you again soon.